Strike Back, episode 7. This episode gave us a lot of cool moments, and ultimately, it left us in suspense for next week, like most episodes do. But this one definitely more so than others. And if you saw the preview, you're really excited, like I am, for next week's episode, which I guess would be this week's episode because this review is pretty late. This episode, Scott and Stonebridge get themselves captured, sent to prison so that they can find this guy Anderson, who is working on the hard drive. He's decrypting it. And when they go in, they say, hey, we're going to get you out of here. He says, I have friends that are basically being held captive. And if I don't do this, then they'll die. And, that led to a very interesting scene in this episode that I really enjoyed. And, even though it's kind of sad, I thought it was a really interesting scene that just had to be put into the episode, and just ultimately played really well for, the character Anderson, and for both Scott and Stonebridge as far as, them kind of failing him when they kind of promise, hey, we'll keep your friends safe and we'll get you out of here. You just give us a little bit of time. So Scott and Stonebridge, they go through. They end up, together in the jail cell with a guy Punchki, I believe. I don't know. It wasn't Punchki. It was Poochie or something. Not Poochie either. But they end up in the cell with him, and they basically become friends with him because they find out that like he wears makeup and wears a dress, and they say hey, your secret's safe with us. We're cool with whatever you want to do. You just have to make sure you don't tell our secrets, so they don't know who we are and what we're trying to do. So they go through, and they have their phone so they know what's going on, if the hostages are safe, and when they can get Anderson out. And when things go down and the hostages are basically being lined up for the video, when the warden of the prisons comes down and says, how come, why are you stopping the decryption, why are you messing with it? That scene I thought was really interesting and just very well done. He's trying to hold out and say, like, I didn't get help from anyone, it was just me. And then you have the girls who are there with the hostages, but they can't do anything because if they do anything while they're on camera, it'll compromise Scott and Stonebridge. So they hold off, and they do this originally. Originally it's the young boy, and he gets traded out for who I would assume is his mother, and they still have to hold because they're on camera, so they can't actually kill these people, and they just have to wait for Anderson to make up the lie, which was basically him saying I was on my own, and I slowed it down because once I do this, they're gonna kill a bunch of people with all this information. And he tries to hold out, and he basically does, and so she gets murdered, and he has to watch that happen, and everyone else who's lined up sees it happen as well. And so he's basically destroyed because the confidence that he had from Scott and Stonebridge is just gone, because they reassure him, say we'll get you out of here and we'll keep your friends safe. And he even says, he says, like, you're too late, excuse me, I decrypted it, you said you'd save her, but she died for nothing. And it was just a really interesting scene. Once everything was shut down, they killed the rest of the guys, and all the other hostages were safe. But obviously, that one death is all it really took for Anderson to lose all faith in Scott and Stonebridge. And I think you really see that in the very end of the episode when Stonebridge is, locked up in the truck with Anderson, and after he gets knocked out and he's handcuffed to the seat, Anderson is just kind of looking at him like he doesn't have a care in the world, like it means absolutely nothing to him. And you can imagine why, when someone reassures you that they're gonna get you to safety as well as keep your friend safe, and they fail at doing that, and like your friend dies and you still end up decrypting it because you don't want to see the rest of your friends die. It just, all of that together, it's all in his face at the end of the episode when he's looking at Stonebridge in the truck. And switching to Stonebridge, and his problems are just ramping up more and more. in this episode we finally get the conclusion as to what he has, and it's a neurotoxin that is affecting his body, which obviously we knew that. But we see in this episode that it's gonna eventually cause paralysis, and his arm is already kind of tense, and he can't really do much with his left arm. But it's gonna be much worse in 1 to 2 days. So he only has 24 to 48 hours before his body is like paralyzed, and he eventually just dies because it'll get to his lungs. And once your lungs are paralyzed and not moving around like they should be, you stop breathing, and that's generally bad. So we get that information, and normally it seems like, okay, they're gonna have their problem. They'd probably be cutting it pretty close to the wire. But we see at the end of this episode, it's gonna be a lot closer now that Stonebridge is captured, just like Anderson is. And it's going to be really interesting to see how they get him out of that crazy situation, which once again in the preview, Kumali and I don't know why I can't ever remember the girls' names at all, but they're both there, and Stonebridge is basically like on the table, like standing straight up. So whatever crazy situation him and Anderson are in now, or at least are gonna be in, I guess, when we see the episode, it's gonna be really interesting to see how they help him escape, and how they help him get the antitoxin. But for this episode, he just has to go through and deal with the problems. Unfortunately, he doesn't have too many issues as far as actually having to deal with anyone, because Scott comes in, and in the one fight where they have to deal with the guy with the shovel, Scott says, hey, I'll take care of this, you two go on ahead. And Stonebridge is able to kind of move past that. But otherwise, in like other episodes where he'd have to shoot and he'd normally miss, in this episode I was thinking we might get a fight where he would actually end up losing because of the neurotoxin. But we don't actually see that. He does get surrounded a little bit in the beginning of the episode, but he like knocks the guy back and he breaks free from that, and then he almost like he loses it a little bit and he almost kills the guy. But the episode, it had that felt like the main focus, where he was dealing with his problem, and then Scott was trying to help him out, knowing that him like missing all these shots and stuff like that aren't just stress. It's him being really really sick and having only a day or two to live. So I felt like that was a really good focus for the episode. Of course, them trying to get Anderson out of prison was the main point of them being in prison and getting themselves arrested. But Michael's struggle, ramping up through this season, with it coming, it's pretty much at a climax. They only have, like they said, 1 or 2 days. I feel like that might be covered within the next 2 episodes, if not completely covered within by this week's episode. But the episode was really well done. It was a nice twist. Locke having an inside man, or a woman in this case, and how they showed the scene initially, it seemed very simple. Leonov, which is amazing. I can remember his name and still can't remember the girls, but he has like a hit out on both of them for 500,000 apiece. And so when she sees this picture from like a coworker, and he has these pictures up, she's like, all right, we'll do 50-50. And when she kills him later in the episode, finding out at the very end that she's actually one of the good guys, you can kind of think back on it, and it's she knew from the very beginning, with him looking at those pictures, he was deleting those files because he was going to do it himself. So she said, hey, we'll do it together. And then once he tries to turn on her, she kills him. And instead of being a bad guy and going to arrest them both like you would assume while watching the episode, we do find out she's actually one of the good guys, and she's Locke's inside woman. And I thought that was a really great twist to the episode, and hopefully she does become a pretty important character in the series. Maybe a new main character. That I think that would be pretty cool, just because of the little bit that we got, I feel like her attitude for the show would be pretty cool because she would kind of fight with Scott and Stonebridge. So that would be, pretty interesting. And then we have, Kumali, who really felt like, or I guess really feels like he is not, in the know with Al-Zuhari, and he feels like he's gonna be killed off because they suspect a rat, and he feels that, they know that it's him. So in the on in the episode when they kill the banker, and when he gets in the car with the other guy, I really enjoyed that scene. I thought it was very interesting. He gets into the car, and he just waits for the guy to walk around, and then he just shoots him, and then just moves over and drives off. I thought that was actually a pretty cool scene. And then it's just crazy. It's like, what is he doing? And then he does explain it. And then when him and Locke are talking, and they're outside of the car, and it blows up, it does seem like Al Zuhari is actually trying to kill Kumali, and it kind of got me on Kumali's side because a car exploding, that's a pretty good sign that someone tried to kill you. And I thought, okay, maybe he is really a good guy. And then Locke goes on to say, when he's speaking later on, he feels that Rachel might have been right about a few things, and he thought the car bomb might have actually been for him. So it's really interesting to see who on the inside is trying to kill him off and kill off other people, and why are they trying to do it really, and what is their ultimate plan behind all this crazy stuff going on with Al Zuhari. So I'm curious to see where that goes, and it does make me wonder. Once again, once they explain that, it kind of put Kumali sort of back in the middle again, and maybe he knew that there was a bomb in the car. Maybe that's why he got out of the car so fast, because it did seem like he got angry really quick to me. I mean, I understand you think someone's trying to kill you, but generally his character seems like, even though when he's angry, he's calm enough to just have a natural argument where he just stands and kind of just yells at you. But in this case, it seemed like he got just it seemed over the top for his character, but at the same time, you have to imagine the over the top circumstance can make you much angrier. So it's kind of hard to guess where things are. But thinking about it now, he could have known that the bomb was in the car, and obviously instead of letting all three of them get blown up because he'd be in the car, he got out of the car and knew Locke would chase him, so that the other guy would end up dying by himself. But obviously that's just speculation, but who knows where that'll end up going. But for now, Kamali's a little bit closer to being a good guy as far as I'm concerned, but not 100%. I'm still on the fence about him, but a little bit closer to him being a good guy. And then one of the smaller things that we got in this episode was Scott explaining the number and why he was looking up the old girlfriend. And it's because he got her pregnant, and he actually walked out on her and her child. So he was looking her up, and maybe his plan of for when he got out was to go and actually help her and support her and her child, and his child, like he meant to do, or like he initially planned to do when he found out that she was pregnant. And maybe that's really been his motivation to figure out how much the diamonds are worth, and that's what pushed him to finally go, instead of him and Stonebridge just talking about it all the time. And Stonebridge dealing with the neurotoxin that he has and all his struggles, he finally asked Scott, or at least once Scott told him, I went to get him looked at. Stonebridge does say, how much are they worth, because he's out. So in the next couple of episodes, once Stonebridge is cured, because I'm sure he will be, it'll be interesting to see, once they have that chance, when he's cured and they solve their problems, are they just gonna quit? Because I feel like they're gonna be able to solve their problem earlier than like the actual season finale, and then after they basically kill off Al Zuhari or figure out who he is, or at least where he is and stuff like that. After that's all said and done, I feel like they'll still have the conflict of, do we really leave what we've been doing, what we've known for so long, or do we keep going just because that's the life we're used to? So I'm curious to see how that plays out for sure. But they're definitely moving forward, with trying to leave, and obviously Stonebridge having this problem is what helped him pretty much come to terms and say, I'm done, because he was suffering so much in this episode. He realized it was just time to get out. And, Scott was pretty much doing the same thing, outside of, the neurotoxin messing with his body. He's just done because he doesn't want to see, anyone else get killed, because, the beginning of this season, Max, I believe his name was, he's killed off, and then Rachel's killed off. And so he's just tired of them, giving up their lives, or almost giving up their lives all the time for people who seem like they just don't give a crap at all, when anyone else could really do it and solve the problem as well. So I'm definitely excited to see how they eventually, come to terms with what they're gonna do with the diamonds. But excuse me, for now, we'll just have to wait and see how they save Stonebridge in next week's episode. So comment below, let me know what you thought of this episode, favorite moments, least favorite moments if you have one, and definitely let me know how you think next week's episode is going to go. Thanks for watching.